Hi, this is Savannah,
And this is Brian from the Dorky Diva Show,
and you're listening to Star Wars.
the best place for below average Star Wars.
In a world where people need 80s and 90s movie reviews, two regular Geordies combine forces to bring you the Brother to Brother 80s and 90s movie review podcast. Check them out on Twitter, YouTube, and all decent podcast vendors.
Welcome to Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete, and this is a very special episode with a very special guest. I am joined by book writer and documentary filmmaker David Whiteley. David, how are you doing?
Well, I'm very well, thank you, Pete, and I'm very flattered to be invited onto your podcast. So, thank you very much. I hope I'm not that boring. Don't live up to your podcast name, but I hope you'll find some of what I say interesting.
Well, I've got a lot of cool questions. Obviously, you've made some really cool documentaries, wrote a really cool book, so I'm excited. I'm sure we're gonna have a great conversation about Star Wars.
Thank you. Me too.
I just want to dive straight in.
Sure.
Obviously, what's your first memories of Star Wars? Sort of how did your journey begin into a galaxy far, far away?
Well, I'm one of these irritating people that has, as Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, put it, the most Star Wars birthday he could possibly imagine. I was born on May the 4th, 1977. So, the year Star Wars came out. So it was already there as I was growing up. My first memories was seeing it on VHS and falling in love with Star Wars, and of course The Empire Strikes Back. But the film that really has a strong connection with me is The Return of the Jedi, because it's the only one I got to see of the original trilogy in the cinema as it came out in 1983. I was 6. I remember distinctly going with my father and seeing it in Southend in Essex, and then on the way home he bought me an Ewok toy figure from our local toy shop, and I just remember Star Wars was everywhere. Star Wars was everything. It was the obviously exploded in the 70s when it came out, and certainly in the early 80s it was very big, and everybody pretty much loved Star Wars. It was on lunchboxes, it was T-shirts, it was bedspreads, it was posters. Of course, it was the toys. And I was one of these, lucky kids that actually got a Millennium Falcon, which I still have to this day. I've still got my Millennium Falcon. It's a bit battered, and a few years ago I spent a disproportionate amount of money trying to replace the pieces from eBay. I probably could have bought a complete second-hand one for what I spent on the bits. But it's my Falcon, and it means the world to me. So I think it was Star Wars has a special place in my heart, I think, and always will. And it was very magical, because now we are blessed, if you like, with huge amounts of Star Wars content. When you can't move for Star Wars content, we've had all these incredible series with more TV series are on the way. But of course, back then you had to wait and fill in the blanks yourselves and kind of make up stories as children about your favorite Star Wars character. And yeah, as I say, it was everything, really.
Yeah, I think my cousin was sort of born the same year Star Wars came out as well. He's who got me into Star Wars, so I was like a tweener. So I watched it on VHS at his house, probably in the early 90s. And then was able to watch the special editions in the cinema after already being a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But then when Phantom Menace came out, it was like, I remember reading like in the newspapers, the interviews with the actors, because it was like the first new Star Wars that nobody'd seen before. So it was
exactly.
Like that was the first time me going into something completely new, which was wonderful.
There is that, and you're right. There is that, Pete. And I remember as well distinctly going to see. Obviously, I'm a lot younger than you, but going to see those special editions in the cinema, and that was exciting. That was fantastic. But of course, when that trailer hit for the Phantom Menace, and you know, and the wording, you know, every story has a beginning, whatever it was, and it just took me right back to being a child again, and then, as you say, that collective experience of being with people in the cinema on opening night. No one's seen it before, and we're all enjoying this together at the same time, and it was very special.
It is indeed. Just to give you a heads up, obviously on eBay, you're definitely going to pay over the odds for bits and pieces. But if you want, I do know some collecting groups on Facebook where
Do you?
do get sort of good value, and you can, after a certain bit, especially retro pieces, I can give you some insight into that to help you out if you've got any other bits you want to.
Thank you, Pete. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And
Indeed,
if you...
yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. So obviously, you know, you're a Star Wars fan, sort of, you know, from when you first encountered it, sort of on the VHS tapes. Sort of, what was the catalyst? Sort of, what are the reasons that make you go from being a Star Wars fan into sort of wanting to make a documentary about Star Wars?
I think it was something that was always there, kind of in the back of my mind, as I became a journalist and a filmmaker, TV presenter. I used to work for the BBC. I'm at ITV News now. I present the news in the Anglia region, east of England. But I've spent 22, 23 years working for the BBC, and I used to present a current affairs program that got axed, actually, so I lost my job there. But before that, I'd been making films for a long time, all kinds of different things, and I did stuff for BBC Three, BBC Four, made stuff for the One Show, presented stuff, and had a lot of filmmaking experience, and I hit upon this idea that no one kind of really had delved into the British connection to Star Wars, and how much of it was made in the UK, through talented filmmakers, designers, you know, production specialists, people like that, who kind of, I felt, hadn't really had their moment in the spotlight. There's a fabulous documentary, which I'm sure you've seen, Empire of Dreams, 2 hours long, brilliant documentary. Talks about, you know, how Star Wars was made, the struggles George Lucas had, and the special effects and everything that was done at ILM, and he created ILM. But there was very little mention of the British input, the British involvement, because of course it was filmed in the UK, filmed at Elstree. There are a lot of British talent, designers behind what happened, and a lot of the core people working around George were Brits. So I didn't realise just how much the British talent had been involved in the making of Star Wars until I started delving into it, and I thought, hey, this is a story we should tell. So I kind of went on the journey of tracking people down, and then eventually the BBC, I think I wore them down. I said, look, this is Star Wars. You know, the BBC hadn't done a documentary about Star Wars since The Phantom Menace, so it's been nearly 20 years. At that point, it had been. So can we? You know, I want to pursue this. So they let me pursue it. I felt the British people hadn't really had the spotlight on them. So tracking them down became my everything, and finding all these some retired, some semi-retired, you know, professionals in the filmmaking industry, and I convinced the BBC that this would be a great, you know, thing to do. I mean, I didn't realise at that point. I was quite naive, I think, as to how much work it would entail and what it would involve, because essentially it was just me and one of my best friends, a guy called Matt Wildash, who was the director and editor of the doc. And it was him and me. We kind of embarked on this journey to try and find these people, try and persuade people to give us a hand, and tell their story.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you're able to come together with like-minded Star Wars fans and then sort of pitch that to the BBC.
Well,
And
I'll tell you
make the
how it
world
happened.
better.
I went up to him. He's a director. He's still at the BBC, and I went up to him one day and I said, and he recalls this. He said, ran up to him. I said, hey, how do you fancy? I said, hey, how do you fancy making a Star Wars documentary with me? And he looked up and I went, great, and I ran off. That was it. And I sowed the seed and it whet his appetite, and it went from there.
Obviously, you make the documentary and it's released in a sort of a 60-minute format, and it comes out. Obviously, that was in 2017,
Yeah.
and then in 2019, it's sort of an extended version comes out at the 89-minute mark,
Yeah.
so almost 90 minutes. Sort of, what was the differences between the two, and sort of what was the situation that enabled you to go back and sort of create an extended version?
That's a great question, Pete. I think the 60-minute version, we felt very fortunate that we got what we got, and we always felt that we compromised on the 60-minute version because there were so many great stories that we had to junk. We had to prioritize the stories that were being told within the 60-minute version. So to have the luxury to go back to make the 90-minute version was fantastic, because we had all these extra stories we wanted to put in. Great stories from Roger Christian, the set decorator, who had so many more stories about the weapons and how he sourced the weapons and how he developed them. And I also wanted to get the voices of those who played in the London Symphony Orchestra, under John Williams, the key players, if we could find them. And also, we were very lucky in the sense that we got a fresh interview with Anne Skinner, who was continuity on Star Wars. So I wanted to put this all in there. So I pitched again to BBC 4 and said, Star Wars is coming to an end, as we thought at that point. Certainly the Skywalker saga was. So this was beginning of 2019. And of course, The Rise of Skywalker came out December that year. I said, wouldn't it be great if we just we repackage this up, we do a bit more filming, we'll put it all apart. So to go from a 60-minute to a 90-minute is quite an effort when it comes to filmmaking. We kind of had to pull all the film apart and slot in chronologically the new stories, so it would all flow. Took a lot more work than I thought it would. It's my naivety. But they said yes. The BBC said yes, and that was coupled with a documentary we made as well, a half-hour program about Palatoy, based in Leicestershire, and the Star Wars toys that were made there. So it was basically a 2-hour slot, just before Christmas, all on Star Wars. I mean, for me, as a Star Wars fan and as a filmmaker, dream come true.
Definitely, yeah. Obviously, one of the reasons why I reached out is because the documentary is currently playing on the BBC iPlayer.
Yeah.
It's the 89-minute version, so your special edition of
the as far as I'm concerned, the only edition, but yes, the special edition.
So that's airing on iPlayer now, and then according to it's airing this Friday on BBC 4 at midnight.
Is it again?
That's what it says on the internet.
Is it really? You see, this is news to me. I didn't even know that. The funny thing is that it now has a life of its own, because it went out 2019. It went out last Christmas, and the only reason I found out it went out last Christmas is because somebody tweeted me and said, "Hey, have you seen your documentaries going out again?" I had no idea, and then I found out about this one. And it's going out again, you say. Goodness me, that's a lot of times. So that means it'll be on the iPlayer for even longer, because every time it goes on, it gets another month.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the questions I want to ask you. The docs, it's popped up again on BBC. It's going to air on BBC 4. It's airing on the iPlayer currently. It's available there. It says for 16 more days, although sometimes it does extend itself past that, which it probably will. Does that leave you with a proper buzz when it comes about like that? Sort of something that you're so passionate about comes back around.
God, yeah. Of course, it's very exciting to know that something you made that I made at home, I suppose, that I sat in my little office at home and kind of constructed and sat in my friend Matt's home edit suite and put together, that has been seen so many times. I mean, Mark Hamill tweeted about it when the shorter version went on BBC World, which was a great thrill, as you can imagine. So to know that it's got a life of its own, and I look now and I think I'm getting older, and I look at myself and I think, who's that young guy? But it's nice to know that it's still out there and will still be seen by many people, which is a real thrill.
It must be. I mean, I can only think about how awesome that must feel. Obviously, you mentioned Toy Empire, the other documentary that you did, based on Palatoy, which was sort of the UK company that made the Kenner action figures. Do you want to talk about how that came about, and also of how much fun you had making that documentary?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I was turned into, so Matt, the same guy that I made Galaxy Britain built with. He came up with this idea that I should be turned into a toy, so there should be these little figures that pop up within the documentary, which they do. But the actual idea from that came from a great friend of mine, a guy called Rick, and he ended up, he was on the shoot as well, filmmaker friend, and he said, look, I think we should do something about toys. And I said, I don't know if anyone's going to be that interested. How wrong I was. He hit the nail right on the head, and we ended up tracking down the guys that were the designers and on the shop floor and on the manufacturing side of things as well at Palatoy. So I went to the factory in Colville. Well, it's not the factory anymore; it's a conference centre. But it's all pretty much the same layout as it would have been, because they were making Action Man, Tiny Tears, and then they got the contract for Star Wars. So that was very special for them. Other companies. That's right, other companies within the umbrella group of the organisation. That had the license turned it down, which is insane when you think how popular it was. And at first, the story of the salespeople trying to sell Star Wars to the retailers is a bit like, it kind of parallels George Lucas's struggle to get people to take the script of Star Wars, because no one was really interested. Everyone thought it was going to fizzle out and die because, Star Wars came out in America 25th of May, 1977. It wasn't until the 27th of December that year that it came out in the UK, 7 months. And it's unheard of now. But everyone thought, well, this is a toy that's going to come around for a bit and disappear. Well, how wrong they were. But at the time, the retailers, according to the salespeople, said, look, they weren't interested in taking it. Because by the time we were trying to pitch this, it was coming to spring, to summer. People were stocking summer toys, and they didn't want these action figures. But then eventually they took them, and of course it went bananas.
Canon Dean, you think about how much money some of those original Kenner and Palatoys go for now if they're in good condition. It's crazy.
We filmed an auction actually with the guys at Prop Store. I've got to know them very well over the years, and Stephen Lane's company, and we filmed. I think memories failing me a bit now, but I think it was their very first toy auction they'd done, or vintage toy auction of Star Wars. And some of these figures, Pete, were going for eye-watering sums. £1,400-1,500 in their packaging. The cardboard Death Star, which was unique, unique to the UK audience, the UK market. They were going for £1,400-1,500 as well. Pieces of cardboard were just, going for crazy money. But if it means something to somebody, then of course it has a value.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. You think, the pandemic we've just been through, I've noticed collecting's sort of gone through the roof, where a lot of people started collecting, either started again over the pandemic. Obviously, you couldn't go anywhere. Those who were still working now were on furlough, we're still sort of bringing money in. And a lot of people started collecting, whether it be Star Wars figures, wrestling figures, sports cards, all that sort of stuff's gone through the roof. So a lot of people who've been sitting on this stuff, the prices have actually risen over the past few years as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well. I think with the pandemic, everyone kind of took stock, had a chance to reflect, and also a chance to clear out the loft. And you're finding stuff in the attic or the basement, going, "Well, hang on, I've got all my Star Wars toys here," and reconnecting with it.
No, definitely. One of my favorite bars up here in Newcastle is called Ernest, and the man who owns that has he has the first set of figures from New Hope and the first set from Empire Strikes Back, but they're actually on display in the bar.
Wow.
which is really cool. But yeah, they're in pretty good condition.
Yeah,
But
I've still got mine. I've still got mine. They're not. I'm not sure how good a condition they're in, but still got the Darth Vader head carry case. So they're all in there. I keep them safe in there.
oh, fantastic.
But I should display them really. But I've got enough Star Wars stuff up as it is.
I've just started literally in the pandemic. I started collecting vintage, so I've got a lot of 90s stuff and a lot of modern stuff. But I've started just piece by piece, not even expensive pieces, even if they're a bit worn. But I try to track them down at vintage markets and stuff. If I see one, I'll grab it. So
Yeah, that's the thing. I think the bargains they're harder to find, but they are still out there.
yeah, definitely. I think I got a Boba Fett. A little bit worn, not too bad though, for about £20. But they can go for more than that on eBay sometimes. So
That's very good. Yeah.
I'm piece by piece putting it together, which is quite cool. And obviously, still lots to go, which is always good when you're on the hunt.
Yeah.
Obviously, do you hope one day that maybe Toy Empire gets a re-release out there?
Well, to be fair, Pete, Toy Empire's been out, I think, more times than Galaxy Britain built. Would you believe it? It went on because it was actually a commission. It was also BBC World stumped up some of the money as well, and they were very keen. They ran that so many times during into 2020, 2021. So yeah, and as I say, it went out again that went out again last Christmas as well. So they've certainly had their money's worth out of the documentaries.
I hope you're getting some royalties every time.
No, not at all. Not one penny, I'm afraid to say. But as I said to you just now, it's a real honour and a real privilege to know that the stories of those amazing people, and some of them have become really good friends of mine, are out there. And of course, since we made the doc, since we made the Galaxy Britain build, two of those amazing people have passed away. John Mollo, the costume designer, he died before the documentary went out, and Gary Kurtz, the producer, he died in 2018, so he didn't see the long version. I've been in touch with his wife, and I've sent her the program and a copy of the book. But yeah, I mean, these guys were instrumental in bringing us Star Wars, and sadly they are getting on now.
I think that's another part. Star Wars has been around for so long now. Like over 40 years.
Yeah.
And, making these documentaries here. Obviously great for yourself, but you managed to capture these people's thoughts. Who people do get old, and everybody has to die at some point. But because of what you guys did, these guys' opinions and thoughts are captured forever now.
Yeah, and I think that was what we felt we were doing. And I remember certainly every interview we did, whether because we filmed in London, we filmed in Oxfordshire where John lived. We went to the Caribbean to see Nick Maley, who made Yoda, and we spent a lot of time in LA picking up interviews, and then we did more back in London. And I think with every interview, we felt we were getting closer to making a film, but also we were capturing, as you say, quite rightly say, is capturing just those memories, those thoughts, things that had never been told before about Star Wars. Because I thought everything's been told about Star Wars. Surely, I mean, are we going to find stuff that's new? And my word, every time I asked a question, I went into every interview as a fan, but also as a journalist, and thinking, now what would I want to hear as a fan of Star Wars watching this? And then every time someone said something, I was hooked, and I would then the next question would flow. So I didn't really kind of plan the interviews. I did in my head, but I didn't go in with loads of questions. I just kind of just sat down for a chat. And so one of the interviews was 3.5 hours long. Just one interview. It's just crazy to think how much filming we did for an hour and a half movie, but it's just so intriguing to hear their stories and to discover things as we went. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and obviously, you've hinted at some of the people you interviewed. You interviewed some big people in the production. The likes of Gary Kurtz, the producer, the likes of Robert Watts, the production supervisor. What was sort of one of your favourite interview moments in making the documentary?
Oh, do you know, Robert's become a great friend, actually. We've kept in touch and been to see him several times. And he's a lovely man, a big heart, kind, and what a talent. You know, he was the producer on you know the first three Indiana Jones films, and obviously on Star Wars, and got the producer credit for Return of the Jedi, and just a lovely man. And we hired the Studio 8, I think it was. Yeah, it was Studio 8 at Elstree, and to do some pieces to camera, to do some filming, and then that's where we were interviewing Robert. So he turned up with Sue, his lovely assistant, who's been also a great friend, and of course I'd never met him. We'd spoken on the phone, and to see him there and to see his face light up because he was back in that studio, you know, a place where he'd made Star Wars, where he'd made Indiana Jones, where he'd spent so much of his life. You know, he did 6 movies with Harrison Ford, you know, lifelong friends, and there he was, just beaming from ear to ear, and you could just tell he was just so happy to be there. And he tells this great story about how he went to Pinewood, and they didn't want to hire out the whole of Pinewood to the production, to Star Wars. So he said, okay. So he went to Elstree, and I can't remember the financial situation with Elstree, but he got the whole place, all the sound stages, all the studios, all the workshops, all the grounds. They could do everything, all the work on the aliens in the cantina, the whole lot for £75,000 for the whole production.
Wow.
So he said it was the best deal ever made in his life, which is in the documentary. And stories like that, I think that's incredible. Because he thought, right, okay, with Pinewood don't want us, I'll go down the road to Elstree. And Elstree said, yeah, and they took him up on it, and that's why Elstree is the original home of Star Wars.
That's wonderful. And they say Star Wars is poetry at rhymes because things keep happening similar. But that reminds me of a story George Lucas tells me when they were looking to hire staging for Return of the Jedi in America, and you know that's where the Blue Harvest name came about, because
that's right.
The Star Wars name, they jumped the price up on them, but then when they ran back up,
that's right. Yeah.
They got it for cheaper.
Very wise.
So obviously, you know, you've you know, the documentaries came out, then you've managed to go back and make a longer version of the documentary, the complete version. And you've also Toy Empire comes out at the same time. And then obviously, you know, the book comes out sort of the same time as the complete version of the documentary. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. So I made the 60-minute version of Galaxy, and I thought, I wonder if there's a book in this, and I transcribed all the interviews, and that's a tedious job in itself. I think as a filmmaker, that's the worst job to do. But it's so crucial to making a film, because you have to know every single word, every single sentence. So every 3 hours of so for every hour of footage of interview, I'd spend 3 to 4 hours transcribing it. That's how long it would take. So I had all this material. And I also decided to re-interview them as well. So I spoke to everyone again, you know, on the phone, and went to see Robert. And I decided there was a book in it, because I had access to some fabulous behind-the-scenes photographs that had never been seen before. You know, from Les Dilley, who was the assistant art director, and from Robert, and from Gary. And people gave me these photographs to use, like, with their permission, in the book. So I thought, I've got enough for a book here. So I tried some publishers in the UK. People weren't interested in the UK, but so ironically, that my publisher, Bear Manor Media, is based in the States. So I took the Galaxy Britain built to America, and the publisher there, Ben, said, "Yeah, I'll take a chance on it." So he did, which is great. So I was very grateful. And I set about writing the book, and it took me about 3 or 4 months, you know, around work and stuff. And I turned it into a book, and it came out, and I didn't realize it had come out because I was so busy getting everything done for the long version of the documentary and Toy Empire. And it came out in November 2019, and I suddenly saw it was on Amazon. I thought, that's my book. My book's on Amazon. And then I emailed the publisher. He said, "Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't have a chance to tell you it's out." So there we go. So the funny thing is, I had to order the books. He was sending me a batch, my first lot of complimentary books from the publisher, but I couldn't wait. So I ended up buying my own book off Amazon just so I could see it in print. So I ordered my own book just so I could see it quickly. So it was a real thrill to kind of, you know, to see your own book. And Robert wrote the foreword for it as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Obviously, you know, the book, which is the Galaxy Britain build, the British talent behind Star Wars, is obviously available in hardcover, paperback and Kindle, and obviously it is on Amazon, so nice and easy to find for everybody. Obviously, I think, looking at it, one of the things that I think it does well that not many books do is, you mentioned how long it took and the time and effort it took to sort of transcribe those interviews, but sort of that's where the sort of these people's stories is, the heart of it. So, I think that's what makes the book special. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's really true. I think it's like any interview we do with somebody. It's spending time with somebody, and if you have a real passion for the subject and you really are intrigued and interested in what they have to say, you'll dig further. You'll ask the next question and the next question and the next question. If there aren't time constraints, then you'll just keep going, and that's what we did.
So, as I said, the documentary, The Galaxy Britain Built, the British Force Behind Star Wars, is available on BBC iPlayer now, and it's also airing on BBC4 this Friday at midnight. But obviously, the best place is probably on iPlayer to catch it on.
Yeah, no one wants to stay up that late, Pete. No one wants to stay and watch it at midnight.
So catch it on iPlayer now. Watch it whenever you want. As I said before, The Galaxy Britain Built, the British talent behind Star Wars, the book, which again has these fantastic transcribed, in-depth interviews with people some people who aren't even with us anymore, but have told and worked on Star Wars. We created this thing that we love. That's available now on Amazon. In both hardback, paperback, and on Kindle. I'm going to give you a hard question now.
Go on.
Which are you prouder of, the book or the doc?
Oh, tricky. That is tough, actually. Gosh, that is really, really. I'm going to say the doc because it came first.
Yeah, without the doc, the book maybe doesn't come.
Yeah, I think the doc. The thing for me as a filmmaker is, and as a presenter, is that I've always said that if you're presenting a documentary, you should be there as a guide, and you kind of disappear. And I can watch that. I never thought I'd be able to. I can actually watch that and feel like I'm not in it. Apart from the beginning, I kind of then forget that I'm in it and just listen to their stories. So I watch it as a piece of television and forget I'm in it because I'm so engrossed in because it's all about them. It's all about this cast of behind the scenes talent who brought us Star Wars and an Empire and Rogue One, etc. Because we talked to Gareth Edwards and Colin Gowdy, and so I think so for me, to watch it and enjoy it and without thinking, oh, I've aged since then or whatever. I can kind of just put that to one side and enjoy listening to their stories.
Have you got any last things you want to speak about the documentary or the book before we move on to some quick fire Star Wars questions?
No, I think you've covered it, Pete, and I'm very grateful. The funny thing is, I will say this: filmmaking is a painful process. so I look back at it now, and I've forgotten the pain of making it, because there were times when it was so frustrating, and not dealing not the people I spoke to, they were great, but certain elements of it were just so difficult, logistics and looking at rights and dealing with the intellectual property lawyers and all that kind of stuff. It was really complicated, and it was all consuming. And there were times when I actually hated Star Wars because I thought I was so deep into it that I had to finish it. It's only afterwards when you finish and you see it and you forget, and the reviews were amazing. The critics were kind. We had really amazing reviews in the papers, in the Guardian, the Mail, the Times, the Sunday Times. But what I was always conscious of was, would the fans like it? Would the fans love it? I was always worried. And my wife said to me, she said, look, you're going to get some flack for this. There'll be people that won't like it. And to this day, touch wood, I've never had anything negative said about it, which to me is just incredible. I was just inundated with messages, kind tweets and emails, and just amazing. So I'm very grateful to the Star Wars community for accepting it and enjoying it. And I feel very, very privileged to have done it.
Fantastic. Well, I know it is great, and it allows these people to tell their story. So I would like to think nobody could say anything negative about it, because essentially just it's a piece of love about Star Wars, and it lets us see these people who made Star Wars with love tell their story. So there's nothing negative to say about it at all.
Brilliant! Thank you.
We're going to move on to some rapid fire Star Wars
Go for it.
questions.
I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
Okay, so first one up is, what's your favorite piece of Star Wars merchandise that you own?
Oh gosh, I think I'm going to have to say, as much as I've got quite a few bits and bobs, I'm going to have to go the Millennium Falcon. I just love its design. I love this is my original toy from the 80s. It's actually a Kenner. It's not Palatoy, but yeah, it's I love it. I think that's going to have to be. I do have a lightsaber hilt from what were they called? Master Replicas, which they don't make them anymore. So I do have one of those, and I do love that just looking at it. But it's Luke's hilt from Return of the Jedi. And as I said earlier,
Oh,
that's a
very nice.
film that's very close to my heart. So those two, I suppose, but probably just the Falcon fits it.
Hasbro have just announced, so they're releasing their high end version of the Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker lightsaber. That's up for pre-order now. So if you were wanting to maybe indulge in something,
No, I
lights up.
try and resist now, Pete. I try and resist. I try not to buy anything Star Wars related if I can help it now, because I have so much stuff in cupboards and boxes, and I just think I can't. So I try not to now. But don't sow the seed.
I'll not send you a link, I promise.
Okay, look, thank you.
Obviously, speaking of Star Wars merchandise, what's one Holy Grail piece that you really want to have that you don't own?
Oh wow!
If you could have any piece that you don't have,
Yeah, I think if I could have any piece, because I'm not too. I think I'd love, if I could get hold of the rocket firing Boba Fett, because I love Boba Fett. And in fact, I started making a documentary about Boba Fett, but then abandoned it. I'm afraid. Well, it's kind of, I haven't quite abandoned it, but it's kicking around, virtually complete, to be fair. So I do love the character. So if I could get hold of a rocket firing Boba Fett, that Steve Sansweet's got many of these. I met Steve at Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim this year, and I gave him a copy of the book and the documentary, and I thought, wow, it's now in the world's biggest Star Wars collection. But to see that rocket firing Boba Fett, I thought, yeah, one of those would be pretty cool.
that's awesome. Mine is what I want an original Revenge of the Jedi teaser poster that got sent out. Change the title.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think Robert Watts had one of those. I'm pretty sure he did.
My wife says they're far too expensive for me to even contemplate.
I'm sure I wouldn't even want to ask how much they cost. It's the same as the rocket firing Boba Fett. It ain't going to happen for us, Pete. It's not happening.
Yeah, certainly. I'll keep dreaming. We'll keep dreaming.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Star Wars music track?
Oh, that's really tough. There's a lot that I love. I love Duel of the Fates. I really love Duel of the Fates. I like Rey's theme. The Imperial March is up there. Obviously, the main title. But I think if I have to think of one that really gets me, it's Tales of the Jedi Knight. Is that what it's called? The one from New Hope when Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's a name I've not heard for a long time," and you hear that. I think it's the flutes playing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. I think one of mine is so the end of The Force Awakens, where you have the Jedi steps in finale.
Oh, yeah.
With that movie ending and such sort of the end of the movie is almost the beginning.
Yes.
Of like what's to come. So I remember just listening to that track, like listen to sort of the Jedi steps bit and then going into the finale, into the end credits. Yes. I remember listening to that like sort of every time I was traveling to and from work, just because it just made us dream about what was going to happen next because of how it ended on the cliffhanger.
Very true. It's a great piece of music. Yeah, John Williams, genius.
Yes, definitely. So that's one of mine.
I want to listen to that now. You said that.
Definitely enjoy it. If you could be a background character in any Star Wars scene, which one would you choose and why?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go. No one will ever pick this. No one will ever pick this. In the original film, in A New Hope, you see the background canteen characters. There's one that looks like a big fluffy bird, and he or she, whatever, wiggles their nose and it makes a funny noise. I'd be that one.
I know the one you mean.
You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean, Pete. Yeah. I always thought, what kind of crazy? I do that one. But then, wouldn't you want to have your face scenes, because then you could just say I was in Star Wars and that's me there, I suppose. But yeah, that character.
I think I would want to voice a droid or be like inside a droid. I think.
Oh, yeah, if you'd be immortalized as the voice of a droid.
Yeah, and
That would be
you probably
that would
definitely
be
getting the
cool.
action figures off your droid.
Oh yeah, of course, yes. So that's me.
What are you looking forward to most going forward, coming from Star Wars?
Oh wow, I'm very behind with Andor. I'm embarrassed to say. I was enjoying the start of it. I loved Obi-Wan, loved the Mandalorian. I'm looking forward to the Ahsoka series. Actually, I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. Actually, I really am. I can't remember when's it out. You'll know when's it out.
So Ahsoka series is planned in for next year, probably around summer or later.
Right. Okay.
So I think we're getting Book of Boba. Not Book of, we're getting Mandalorian season 3 at the beginning of next year.
Yeah.
And then
Well, that's going to be
Ahsoka will
great.
be after.
Yeah. Well, the Mandalorian is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Love it. So yeah, but Ahsoka, I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes.
I recommend. So I've just binge watched Tales of the Jedi, the new animated series.
Right, is that good?
Yeah, so they're quite short episodes, so you can binge them quite easily, and like it deals with sort of a lot of Count Dooku and the Jedi sort of.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah,
and it's wonderful. It's almost it's wonderful, tragic, and hopeful all in one. Very charming, but very tragic, but hopeful.
That's very Star Wars, though, isn't it? I mean, that's Star Wars. It's the mixture, isn't it?
Yes, and that's exactly what I watched. And I was like, we need more of this. There's plenty of the Jedi to tell tales about, so I hope they bring them in. But Liam Neeson comes back to revise some of his role.
Does he?
Just little bits, and I definitely recommend it. And because they're so short, they're really bite sizable. You can binge them really easily. So yes, I definitely recommend Tales of the Jedi.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank God.
You get a little bit of Ahsoka in there as well. Obviously, a little warm up maybe for the Ahsoka series.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely up for that. That sounds great.
What's your favorite bit of Star Wars clothing that you own?
Star Wars clothing. I bought a Han Solo replica jacket from Force Awakens because I really thought it was cool. I think I've worn it like twice.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, it is quite cool. I bought that ages ago. I that's what it was. So when I got excited about making the Galaxy Britain built, it was because The Force Awakens had come out, and I saw it I think 9 or 10 times at the cinema. I was away a lot working, so I was on my own, and I would think, I'll go to the cinema tonight. So I did see it quite a few times. I love that film.
And last but not least, what is your favorite Star Wars film?
Oh, it's got to be Empire. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go old school. Say Empire Strikes Back. But Rogue One is a very close second for me, I think.
Yeah,
followed by Return of the Jedi, then New Hope.
Rogue One is fantastic. It's a lovely movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what mine is because I find it hard from day to day. Mine changes. So
does it? Yeah, maybe.
But no.
Yeah, but I just think if Empire's on, if it's on the television, even though I've got it on Blu-ray and what have you, I just think, I'll just get into it, and then it's great. But as I say, Return of the Jedi, I'm going to tell you this. So there's one bit for me that sums up Star Wars. I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about this podcast interview with you, Pete, and I thought there's one bit that sums up Star Wars for me. It's a feeling. It's one scene, and it's when it's not Luke or Han or Leia. It's when Lando is in the bowels of the Death Star, the second Death Star. Wedge takes out some antenna or something, and then the Falcon nails that main reactor, and they're bombing it like crazy through the shafts, and all the flames are coming, all the TIE fighters are getting blown to smithereens, and then you see their point of view shot, and the whole thing is engulfed in flames, and you see the TIE fighters behind us explode. You think they're not going to make it, and then they punch through that fire, and that yeehaw that Billy D. Williams lets out is just that Star Wars for me. That's like that the peril and the danger and the heroism, and then the relief, and then the excitement, and knowing that they've done it. Like that to me is just that. I remember, as I say, when I was 6 and I saw it at the cinema, I was just, my eyes were on stalks. There's just, it's like, yes, that's Star Wars. That's kicking it. It's sorting the bad guys out. It's redemption. It's hope and exhilaration.
And I think also togetherness, because I can't picture that scene without Lando doing the hee-haw, but then I knew him sort of with a big smile, like
Yes,
buzzing
right.
as well next to him. We've done it
Yeah,
together.
exactly. I'm glad you said his name because I wanted to say his name, but I couldn't remember how to pronounce it. So I'll be honest.
And just to go back to your Star Wars clothing bit, I got like I can't remember what company made them, but a company made like jackets similar to Rogue One. So I've got a jacket similar to Captain Andor's, which
Oh,
I love.
wow.
But my wife does not enjoy me wearing that when I go out.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see, you've got to do it with your friends. You've got to do it with your pals. It doesn't always go down well.
I think it looks great, but she's like it looks like a piece of costume. I was like, well, that's probably good if it looks that good. That looks like it was used in the movie, but yes,
Exactly.
indeed.
But I
But no,
can empathise.
but no, that brings an end to our interview. Thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Honestly, Pete, I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a long time since I've talked about the whole process. So thank you. I feel very flattered to be on Star Wars with you today.
Thank you very much. Are you going to be at Star Wars Celebration in April?
I am going to be at Star Wars Celebration. Yes, I am indeed. So I was in Anaheim with some friends. I was invited out there. Very nice. I was their guest, which was fantastic, and I'm going to be in London. So I'll see you there.
You will indeed. So I did London, then I did Orlando, then I did Chicago. I missed Anaheim, but I'm coming to this one in London, so I will buy you a beer. You can choose beer.
I will reciprocate, sir. So thank you very much.
Spot on. Do you want to let the people know where they can find you on social media?
You can, yeah. If you want to contact me about the book or anything to do with Star Wars or anything really, it's David Whiteley TV on Twitter, at David Whiteley TV on Twitter. I'm David Whiteley Media on Instagram, and my websites are Galaxy Productions and the GalaxyBritainBuilt.co.uk. You can contact me through there if you'd like a signed copy of the book.
And remember, the documentary, The Galaxy Britain Built, The British Force Behind Star Wars, is airing now on BBC iPlayer. And for those who want to stay up, it's on Friday at 30 minutes past midnight on BBC 4. And obviously the book, The Galaxy Britain Built, The British Talent Behind Star Wars, is available now, both in hardback, paperback, and Kindle edition on Amazon. And obviously, as David just said, you can reach out to him to get signed copies as well, which is fantastic. But no, thank you very much, David. It's been fantastic. I've had a lovely time chatting Star Wars with you.
That's great, Pete. And listen, I'd love to give one of your listeners a copy of the book. So if you want to do a competition or anything, I'd happily send you one, sign it, whatever, devalue it by signing it. So just let me know.
We will do that, yes. So listeners, stay tuned to our social media to see how you can win a signed copy of David's wonderful book. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. David, thank you very much for joining me. May the force be with you all. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Hello, Star Wars listeners. This is Savannah Odit. You might know me as host of The Dorky Diva Show with my co-host Brian Balance. I am also producer of The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, which is a Star Wars-inspired audio drama that we produced over the last year. If you love stories about smugglers, courage, heroic characters, and maybe a few foes along the way, you should go to thedorkydivashow.com and listen to The Adventures of the Zolan Dart today.
Shout! We've got your pigs.
Were any of the critters harmed?
What did you do now?
I didn't do anything. I just freaked out for no reason.
It was nice doing business with you again. Maybe next time we could deliver something less temperamental.
Now, what you call temperamental, I call fun.
Hey, is there a place nearby where I can make some repairs?
3 clicks south of here, you'll find a small spaceport. They should have what you need, as long as it's nothing too big.
Dynamic class? My stars, you don't hear about many of those still being space-worthy.
It's been in my family for a while.
She's pretty great. Any chance you have a hover cart we can use to load up?
I'll check out the HoloNet to see if anything new has come up in the sector.
My name is Sereth Khan. I am the chief here on Kamai. My people and I have been experiencing food shortages as of late due to unforeseen natural occurrences. We are looking to hire someone.
I say we take this one. The pay is great, and it's the type of job we're familiar with.
Welcome. You must be Captain Otoa. I've already sent word to Pack 2 to expect you in the next cycle or so.
You told him we were coming before we even accepted the job. That's rather presumptuous, isn't it?
Perhaps, though Once I received confirmation that you were interested and on your way here, I couldn't help but hope.
Fair enough. Well, we'll be back as soon as we can.
Well, that's not good.
Is that blaster fire I hear?
Ah, so you're the one.
Captain, it sounds like they want to do this the hard way.
I love when they got some fight in them.
This is bad. This is bad. We're about to have a lot of company.
I'll see you soon.